I've been sewing for 7 years now, and I've got lots of positives to share with you. So today I'm talking about 7 profound life lessons that I learned from 7 years of sewing. So the first life lesson that I want to share with you, and I didn't learn these in any particular order, is that your garment is a piece of art. Now, I really think that we need to change our mindset around the clothes we're making. We just tend to make clothes, think we want to make a skirt, for instance, and then we make a skirt and we've got a skirt and we wear it and we don't give any more thought to it. But actually what we're creating is a piece of art. So in the beginning stages of deciding what we want to make, we're actually in the beginning stages of our own individual masterpiece. Art is there to express creativity and individualism, and that is exactly what our garment sewing should do, and in most cases does do. So you'll decide what you want to sew. You might want to sew a top, but you don't have any real ideas, so you do some research, you come up with some ideas, and then you look for a pattern that closely fits that. You make the garment up, you might make hacks, you've chosen the fabric that you want to use, and at the end only you have that garment. It should be really, really valued deeply, and I know from my own experience that I just haven't valued my clothes as much as I should do. If you've been following my capsule wardrobe no rules, you'll see that I decluttered my rail, and this is what I have left. And most of the clothes that I've spent the last few years sewing are going to be donated or recycled. So I didn't take the care to make sure I was using quality fabrics, I was doing quality sewing, I was taking time to get the fitting process right. Now in the last year or so I have been doing those things more so, but up to this year I haven't, and it was a real life lesson for me to learn. Ultimately, the garment that we make will express who we are to the outside world. The clothes we wear are a form of communication, and so for that reason I really do believe that the garment we're making is our own masterpiece. So if we go a little bit deeper into that, the next life lesson I want to share with you is that sewing helps us get in touch with who we are as individuals. So as I just mentioned in the last point, our garments are an expression of who we are, and it's up to us how we control that. Through the process of learning to sew, practicing and creating garment after garment, we start to learn about what we like and what we don't like. These may have been things that we didn't really give too much thought to before we were sewing, but because we are sewing and we are making our own garments, and let's face it, sewing is not a cheap hobby, so we want to get it right with each garment, and so we really do hone in on what we want, what is right for us, and how we want to make it. Further to this, I think we become more self-aware in this process of doing these things, and that can have reverberations outside of sewing as well. It can raise our confidence and our self-esteem, for example. You might have worked in corporate all your life, started sewing, decided you love it, and then abandoned that career for a career in sewing, and it's something you would never have considered really before you were sewing, and so in that way it can be really profound. For those of us with low self-esteem or low confidence, learning to sew cannot actually raise our confidence. It's a good first step in the self-awareness, and with self-awareness comes confidence, so it's a win-win all round. So the third life lesson that I learned with 7 years of sewing is that spending does not lead to happiness. Now, you probably don't need sewing to tell you this if you've got any kind of introspection. I've always been someone who likes to spend money. I've not been a saver. It is something I'm working hard to change. Having been through the process of buying all the fabrics, buying all the machines, buying all the notions, and coming out of the other side of that, it's teaching me a really valuable lesson that spending money on all the things is not going to bring me happiness. It did bring me short-lived happiness, I can't deny that. When I was receiving those fabrics, the euphoria I felt when they arrived in the post was fantastic, but I'm talking long-term happiness. there is an argument to say it was all part of my journey, and sewing does make me happy. I'm sitting here now having destashed my fabrics, destashed my clothes. The problem with building a stash is that when you buy it, you absolutely love it, but later on, a year or two, when you think you might use it, you're actually not in love with that fabric anymore. So I personally think it is better to save your money in your bank account and then buy fabrics as and when you need them. But that is just me. You may well be different. Another problem with buying all the fabrics, all the notions, all the machines is that when you stop buying, you still have that void. It still needs filling in some way or other. And so spending hasn't actually fixed the thing you wanted it to fix. Now, sometimes there is good reason to be spending. Sometimes we need things, and sometimes we just want some nice things as well. I have a sewing machine that cost me £1,000, which is a huge expense for me. I do not regret that purchase. My sewing machine's about 3 years old now, and it's probably the best purchase I've made in sewing. So there is definitely room for purchases that you do love that you don't necessarily need, but I'm just talking about buying in excess. I've had an IKEA machine for £45, I've had a £99 machine, I've had a £200 machine, I've had a £500 machine, and I've had a £1,000 machine. So I've tested them across the range, and I do not regret buying my big purchase, but the truth is it's not actually necessary in order to sew. Basic supplies will do the job when you're just starting. As I say, there is a time for buying more expensive supplies, but I think that's when you know that sewing is for you and it is your hobby and you are going to stay with it for the long haul. You don't want to be spending £500 or dollars on a sewing machine that you're going to use twice because you didn't take to it. So I would say within my 7 years of sewing, that is one of the big lessons that I've learned, and I have now stopped spending unless I actually need something. So just take a moment to ask that if you are enjoying this video, you do give it a like down below, leave me a comment and subscribe, because those things tell YouTube that my video is really good and they share it out to more people. So growing up, I always believed that you had talented people and then you had untalented people. You were either born with your talent and it comes to you naturally, or you're not. I really never understood until I started sewing that anyone can be good at their passion. All it takes is time and effort for success. So if you had told me 8 years ago that I would be sewing to a level that I'm teaching others online, I would have laughed in your face. I really would have. I wouldn't have believed it in a million years. Because as I say, I didn't believe that I had a talent for sewing. But for me, while some people may have a talent for it in that it's innate, it comes easily to them, that doesn't mean people who don't have that talent cannot become talented at the thing. For example, if there's a technique that you can't do for the life of you, I'd bet that if you practice that for 2 weeks non-stop, you would be able to do that at the end of the thing. Probably a lot quicker than 2 weeks, in fact, maybe even a day. Anything that doesn't come naturally to us can be achieved through practice. That's why I'm now in a position where 7 years in, I know how to do most things in sewing and can achieve them. I may not be absolutely perfect at them still. I am a lot better than I was 8 years ago when I had never picked up a sewing machine. In this era of the internet, the free data, there's absolutely no reason we cannot learn any passion that we have or any skill. Passion can be developed through learning as well. Malcolm Gladwell said that it takes 10,000 hours of practice to become an expert at something. So I promise you, if you practice at your sewing, you will become an expert at it. The main thing is you have to stick at it. So you put in the time and you put in the effort, and that equals success. So the next life lesson I learned in sewing, and it's one that doesn't just apply to sewing, as many of these don't, and it's that evolving is the key to growth within sewing. So everything we do across our whole lives, we always evolve at it. We were born a naked little baby, and now look at us. We've developed in so many ways, and sewing is no different. You might make your first garment and think that it's rubbish and that you're no good at sewing and there's no point in carrying on, but that just isn't true. The more you practice, the more you will evolve, and the better you will get at it. All the areas that you will evolve in, whether that's the actual sewing skills, whether that's your style, whether that's your taste, whether that's the type of garment you make. There's many areas within sewing that you will evolve in, and all together they will come together and make a better product and make you better at sewing in the end. So it really is worth persevering with. I know for me, where I've suffered with chronic illness, learning to sew has been a complete lifeline for me. And if I hadn't evolved from the start, then I most definitely would not be sewing now. The next life lesson that I want to share with you is that developing a passion can be life-changing. Growing up, I never really had ambition instilled in me. I did have an ambitious streak, but I guess that is a talent that came naturally. That's just a motivation that is within me, but it was never taught to me. We were taught to just get a minimum wage job and be happy. That's what life is. Following our passion, then we will never work a day in our lives. Now, within sewing, there are lots of ways you could have a career, and I could do a video on that, different ways to make money from sewing if you'd like. There's too much to go into now, but there are many ways. Even if you don't want to change your career, it can change your confidence levels, it can change the way other people treat you. There are so many ways that it can profoundly affect your life. It's no secret that sewing can help dispel depression, anxiety, can improve our moods, lift our moods, if you will. It can be really life-changing on, I can't explain, so many ways. Learning to sew will quickly become your passion, and when we have a passion for something, it really shines through. If you have a career in it, it's going to really help you to succeed in that way. So the 7th life lesson that I want to share with you is that we build our self-esteem and our confidence from sewing. Learning to master sewing can help us to feel really good about ourselves, and that's because there's so many byproducts of sewing. So just a few of the things that I learned from sewing is that size doesn't matter. Before I started sewing, I could barely even take a photo of myself, and now look, I'm all singing, dancing on YouTube. It really does help. I can't explain that. The very act of having to measure yourself for a garment makes you face the reality of what you're dealing with. And yes, at first when I faced that reality, it wasn't very pleasant, but it helped me to really accept who I am and not be afraid, and just understand that size is not important. The size of me does not make up who I am, and for many years I felt that it did. And with that, I learned that confidence comes from within. People would always say that to me because I've always been someone who suffered with low self-esteem, and people would say you've got to learn to love yourself from within. Never really understood that concept really, but now I understand that it does come from within, because if you do things that can make you feel good about yourself, that will grow your self-esteem, and you won't be reliant on anyone else in the outside world to keep you happy. It also makes others respect us more. They look up to us because we can sew a garment. How many of you have had someone say to you that you're so talented to be able to make clothes? I know I've had that said to me, but to my mind, it's not talent. It's just I've put the hours in and I've put the effort in, and now I'm able to sew clothes. But it's not anything that anyone else can do. But because they can't do it, you get elevated respect from them for being able to, up until the point when they're asking you to make a dress for £15. Until then, you do get some kind of respect. And all these really positive things create a self-fulfilling cycle. The more we do them, the more we feel better about ourselves. The more we feel better about ourselves, the happy we are. And what is more profound than feeling happiness from within? If you can resonate with anything I've said in this video, do leave me a comment and let me know down below what was your biggest takeaway from this video. If you did like it, don't forget to like, subscribe, all the things, click the notification bell, and then you'll be notified when my next video goes live. I am aiming to have videos every Sunday and every Wednesday moving forward. Until next time, happy sewing. Bye for now.